Welcome back to the studio, everybody, and for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome to our new series, Project Looking Glass. In this series, we're going to be going over tutorials, tips, and tricks on how to create your own RPG adventure game. Now, this series is going to serve as a kind of devlog, so those of you who watch are going to get a first-hand look at our upcoming project as it is being developed. In our last episode, I went over how to create the character statistics and how to create a heads-up display using a user widget and referencing the player character, which came out looking pretty similar to this. In today's video, we're going to be going over using some of our player stats from a previous video to create and use a stamina drain and regen system, as well as adding action input mappings for a sprint and attack system. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to want to do now that we have our character set up, you can see we have our statistics for health, stamina, and magic there. We're going to want to add some inputs so that we can start doing things with our stats. So you can see we can run around right now, and we don't really have any functionality for a sprint system, but I'm going to show you how we can add that real quick. So in our folder, we're going to want to go, in our folder, we're going to create input action mappings. And the way that we do this is quite simple. In whatever folder you want to add your inputs, you're going to want to open it up, right click, come down to input, and under input, go to input action. These are identical to what already comes with the tutorial character for whatever template you're using in Unreal Engine 5. So you can add these to the input mappings in the folder for that project, or you can create a folder like we did and put them in there to keep them separate and kind of keep track of what you're doing. In this case, we're just going to go ahead, put it in our own folder, and we're going to call this input action IA underscore sprint. It auto-saved, and it ruined my naming convention. Let me rename that real quick. Rename IA underscore sprint. There we go. And we're going to also want to create an attack function as well. So we're going to create another one. We'll name this IA underscore attack. Now that we have our two options, we're going to go ahead and open up Sprint, and you'll be brought to this screen here. You can add whatever variables you want here so that you can trigger it when the game is paused. You can reverse, or you can reserve the mapping. You can change the value of the type. This would usually be used for moving the character or changing the angle of the camera. In this case, we're just going to use the standard setup. So we're going to use digital bool, nothing checked off, but we're going to add a trigger. So under trigger, on the array element, we're going to hit the plus to add an element. You'll have an index added to it. Under index, we're going to drop down and we're going to add a pressed. And we're also going to want to do something when we release it. So we're also going to add a release. There we go. And this is all we need to do for sprint. Save it, exit. Now we can come into the attack. We can do the same here, although in this case we're not really going to need something for release. So we're just going to add a single index for pressed. Save, exit. And that's all we need to do for our inputs. Now, in order to use these inputs, we also need to add them to an action mapping context. And you can create your own if you want, but the templates that you use for your project also come with their own. So you can see when we go to move our character, we already have a mapping context for walking around directionally, changing the camera view angle, as well as jumping. And we can go to that simply by going to our content folder, finding whatever template you're using. I'm using third person. And in that folder, you'll have an input folder. In that folder, you're going to have the base actions, jump, look, move. You're also going to have the IMC default. This is your mapping context. Open that up, and on this screen you'll have mappings. Hit the drop down. You'll have all of your currently active inputs. We're going to want to add our 2 new inputs. So up here, add an action mapping. Click the drop down, and you'll see sprint and attack are now in here. We'll add sprint first, and it'll add this menu too. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is set a binding for your input. Since this is sprint and we're only using keyboard right now, I'm going to set this to the shift button. And there's 2 ways that you can do this. You can go into this drop-down menu, and you can select whatever input you want for it. This is how you would go about doing this manually. Or you can hit this button here, and this will key whatever button you press next to the input. So now that that's lit up, left shift, and it's already queued. We do not have to do anything else here, but I can show you real quick. If we go to jump, you can see how the inputs are already mapped to gamepad, keyboard, and touchscreen. And if you drop down these menus, you can see they're all set to receive the same input in the same way. So these can always be changed later on if you want to do specific things when you press triggers, if you want different modifiers for it. But in this case, we're just going to use the basic setup. So now that we have sprint, we're going to add our attack. It'll do the exact same thing. Bring that up. There we go. Actually, I think I have to just close that. There we go. IA attack, and we're going to do just a basic... What do we want to set this as? I suppose we'll just set it as default. We'll do left click. Left mouse button. There we go. Alright, now that we have that set up, we can close out of this. That is all we need to do for our mapping context. Now that we have that all set up, we can go into our games folder. And actually, we don't actually need to be in our games folder. We go into our third-person character, or whatever character blueprint you're using. And now we can use our input actions. The way that we do this, each of your actions has a different name. So if you just type in your name, so let's do sprint. You're going to want to click on this enhanced action event. Click on that, and you'll have this custom event pop up, and it's going to have a whole bunch of different inputs that you can do. So you can set this up with different triggered seconds, elapsed time. You could set up Boolean values that it will kick off, and you can have it do different things for as long as you're holding down the button, if you cancel the action, trigger it, all of that good stuff. The code to make our sprint system is actually really simple, and the easiest way to change how fast the character moves is to take this character movement, drag it onto the screen, and coming off of character movement, you're just going to get set max walking speed. So we can do that. And if you go back to your character movement, you can actually see under max walking speed, our standard speed is 500, which is like a brisk walk or a jog. We can actually kick this up quite a bit. So let's set that to 1,000. But we also need a way to set it so that it will go back to 500 so that you can turn off your sprinting mechanism. So we're going to duplicate our set value here. Bring this down, connect movement speed, and we're going to do a flip-flop. So the way a flip-flop works is it will change to whichever value is not currently active every time this kicks off. So when it's pressed, it will go to A. When it's released, it will go to B. And vice versa. There we go. So now we have a basic sprinting. Oh, I just saw this. We'll have to set this back to 500. It wouldn't do for us to only have a speed of 1,000. There we go. Back in third person. If we go to play, you can see our basic movement speed. It's just a brisk jog. But if we hold down shift now, we can zoom around the map pretty readily. And as soon as we release shift, we slow right back down to 500. So this is our basic sprinting setup, but it's not using any stamina yet. So let's get that changed. So back in our third person character, we can actually take this ability and we can convert it to our sprinting system. So I've already copied that over from a previous project, and I'm going to show it on the screen now. All right, folks. So this is my basic sprinting setup. I've got two custom events here. I've got a use stamina event right here on screen, which is pretty simple to explain. You take the current stamina of the player, you subtract 0.2 from it for each event of use stamina, and then you clamp that off at a minimum value of 0 and a maximum value of your maximum stamina so that it does not go above or below those values. Then you set that as your current stamina, check to see if you have any stamina, and if you do have stamina, or if you don't have stamina, it will turn off your ability to run and set your walking speed back to 500. This part is very important because it basically means once you run out of stamina, you will go back to walking, even if you're holding down the shift button. This is very useful. And our regen stamina setup is also fairly simple. You take your current stamina, you increase it by 0.65, cap it off at a minimum of 0 and a maximum of your max stamina, and then you set that as your current stamina. And it will do that for every instance of regen. And I say every instance because we're going to be looping these abilities so that they activate as long as you have less than the maximum, or as long as you're using your sprinting system. After you set the current stamina, it'll check to see if your current stamina is greater than or equal to your max stamina, and if it is, it will turn off your ability to increase your stamina. If it's not, it will keep increasing your stamina. So that's fairly simple, and you can see the effect in this part right here. Ignore these parts, these were for checking it. So this is our simple stamina loop. So, as long as you're sprinting, it's going to take your current stamina and check to see if it's greater than 0. If it is greater than 0, it will set the variable is running and allow you to sprint. It will also set your maximum walking speed to our current 1000 with a retriggerable delay to use the ability of use stamina, which is our custom event down here. So every time this kicks off, it will use 0.2 of your stamina. So as long as you're holding down the sprint, as long as you're running, you'll constantly be using this loop right here. And it will check every time to see if you are running, and as long as you are, it'll just keep going. And it'll do the same for the stamina regen. As long as you can increase your stamina, it will continually kick off the regen stamina function down here until you have all of your stamina back, or until you can no longer increase stamina. So, in order to use this, all we have to do is call our sprint. So we call that, we plug in triggered into the top one, and we're also going to plug in completed on the bottom one. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, where'd it go? There we go. So this works. So as long as your current stamina is greater than 0, it will kick off the is running. If it drops to not having any stamina, if you don't have any stamina, it'll turn off your ability to run. And if you turn off sprint, if you let go of the button, it'll also turn off your ability to run. And each of these will kick off in their own time. So a little bit long-winded explanation, but it's fairly simple code. I'll leave it on screen here for a second so that you can get a look at how it goes. And then I will showcase it as it is. So you can see we have our health, stamina, and magic right here. If we start moving around, walking doesn't take up any stamina. If we press shift to sprint, it will rapidly drain our stamina, and we will move at twice the speed that we were before. And once it hits 0, we'll start walking again. And as long as we do not hold down shift, it will continue to regain stamina. And as soon as we hit shift again, it'll start draining our stamina. So that is our basic setup. That is how we are going to set up our sprint mechanism, our stamina regen, and our stamina drain. And you can call the stamina drain on practically anything. You can also call the stamina regen after any time you use your stamina. So as long as your stamina is less than the maximum, it will always be called. It's a versatile setup so that you can now set up any other event to take place. Now, the only other thing that we were going to cover in this video was a basic attack. And the way that we're going to do that is actually fairly simple as well. Let's make space here. We're going to come down just below the sprinting system. Actually, let's go ahead and highlight this. Hit C to make a comment, and we're going to call this stamina sprint system. Show bubble so that now we can see it. And you can now move this anywhere you need to. It will drag all of the code with it. All right, so what we want to do in order to create our attack function is call our attack input. So now that we have our attack input, this is going to happen every time we left click. So what we're going to do, we're going to come off of triggered, and we're going to do a sphere trace by channel. Not by channel, by object. Sphere trace by objects. You're going to want to make sure that's for the singular object, not multi, because we're only going to want this to kick off a single time. And you're going to want to get your players, or your characters, position. So get player, or not player, get actor location. There we go. So now that we have our location, the start of the sphere trace is going to start on the center of the player itself. Next, you're going to want to get actor forward vector. And you're going to want to multiply this. Right-click on the secondary pin here, and you're going to want to change that to a float. You're going to want to add 150 or however much you want to this, because this is going to change how far forward from the player the sphere trace will go. And then you're going to want to add it to the actor location. Change that, plug that into the endpoint, and let's give it a radius of 20. Now that that's set up, we're also going to do a debug. So we're going to do for duration, drop this down, and we're going to change the draw time to 1. Compile, save. I seem to have made a mistake. What did I do? Object type. It's not checking for anything. So we're going to come off of this. We're going to make an array. So this is going to be whatever object it checks. We're going to do, let's do pawn. Compile, save, there we go. So whenever this hits a pawn, it will trigger. Go back to third person map, let's play. And there's our sphere trace. So on left click, every time you left click, it will hit out that far and check to see if anything in that vicinity is being hit and is considered a pawn. If it is considered a pawn, then it will allow the next part of the code to take place. And that's how you set up a basic attack function. So you can see it's not triggering on anything here, but if we were to go into our new gear, I've got a scale model here. We'll drop it in. And you can see that it kicks off. So anything that's red is not triggering the sphere trace because it's not considered a pawn. You can see the environment doesn't trigger it. It's not kicking off on the player. We could still sprint. It's not triggering off of these. But the second that we touch this model here, you see we get that green sphere. And what that tells the system is there is an object right there that can be affected by the sphere trace. So that's how we do a basic attack, and later on we're going to do a video where we're going to add an actual damage to the attack and be able to affect the environment with it as well. Alright, well that concludes this video. So in this video it was a little bit long-winded, but we wound up going over how to create a stamina drain and regen system, as well as adding a sprint and attack function to the character. We went over how to create input actions and add them to our action mapping context, and I showed off how we can create a versatile regen system so that as long as the player's stamina is below the maximum, it will always regen. We also showed off how to create a sphere trace for the player to attack with in order to check if there is an object in front of them that can be affected. Later on, we're going to be adding a new attack ability to the player, as well as a heavy attack that will actually drain the stamina instead of just letting you spam it. Both of those are going to have animations and custom weapons that we will be showcasing in our game. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and if you did and would like to check out the rest of our series, we have another video where we created the character statistics that you saw on screen, where I also go over how to create a heads-up display. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe to stay up to date on our future videos, as well as check out our channel to find other content by Obsidian Dawn Studios, including portals and crop growing mechanics. Stay tuned in for our next video, and I hope to see you there. Until then, go out, make an impact.